Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is 26.2 at 50, where I talk about my journey to run the Portland Marathon this October at 50 years old. This is July 13th when I'm recording this, so this is about 6 weeks into my training plan. So just 12 more to go. It was a good week. The training plan I'm following was actually like a kind of dialed back the distances, like the total distance running this week. So I just finished running my long Sunday run. Today's Sunday. So that was 9 miles. It was fine. I got out there a little bit early. It's a little bit warm this weekend, so it's probably going to be close to 90 degrees Fahrenheit here today. Next week is going to be a bit hotter, which, well, that'll be interesting because the training plan definitely ramps up a bit. So the long run a week from today that I'm going to be doing is actually 14 miles. So I've only run half marathons this year, so that's going to be kind of my first step into a distance longer than the half marathon. So we'll see how all that goes. Anyway, I thought I'd talk today about another subject that is very relevant to anyone training for a marathon or any type of other sort of significant like endurance event, and that's diet. So I was a little bit leery of doing a video on this subject. To be clear, like I know diet, like there are a lot of people online who, how to be nice about this, are very, 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 very passionate in advocating for the benefits of certain diets and informing you of the flaws of other diets. That was the nicest way I could put it. Anyway, so yeah, this isn't going to be a video about me telling you that like one particular diet is like the greatest thing in the world and every single person on earth should be eating this way. For a variety of reasons. First of all, you know, arguing with people on the internet is just not very important to me. Second of all, I personally am not super rigid or dogmatic about my own diet, so I don't want to be a hypocrite, essentially. I don't want to give you advice that I would never follow myself. A third consideration is like, that's also not really what I believe, frankly. I think different diets can work better or worse for different people. I think, human beings have lots of individual differences. So I don't know if there's really like one true path that's good for everybody. And of course, I guess probably maybe the most important consideration is just like diet advice starts to get a little bit close to being medical advice. And just to be very clear and transparent, like I am not a physician. I am not a licensed healthcare professional of any kind. So like you should not consider any of this to be medical advice. Like absolutely not. So if you're working with a doctor who has like recommended you follow a specific diet, you should absolutely take their advice more than mine. And I know there are a lot of people out there who suffer from things like autoimmune conditions or like really painful gastrointestinal problems, and like for people like in those situations, they might explore things like elimination diets where like perhaps like removing one of the ingredients takes care of the symptoms. Like if you're in that boat, like absolutely do what you have to do rather than following my advice. Just being very clear. And of course, I mean, I know certain people choose certain diets sometimes for moral or ethical or religious reasons, and like I totally respect that. Like follow your conscience, whatever makes most sense to you. The only thing I'll say about like, sort of popular diets in the context of training for a marathon is like if you're gonna do a race like this or any kind of like significant like endurance sports, like probably the same thing for like ultra marathons or triathlons, is your body is going to need a ton of carbs. It's just biology. So like when you eat carbs, they're broken down, they get stored as glycogen in your body, and like when you're like running for hours, like the glycogen is what your body burns as fuel. So, you'll hear stories of marathoners talking about like they have like the big pasta dinner the night before the race. And like there is a reason why they do that. It's like to really build up the carbs in their body. So, I mean, I would say, if you're eating like a very carb restricted diet, like the carnivore or keto, or maybe something like Atkins that's not quite as on trend, you know, that might be a challenge if you want to run a marathon also. In the same way that like if you wanted to get into like powerlifting or bodybuilding or something, eating a very protein restricted diet might also be a problem. So that's kind of what I'll say about just as a general guideline. So, and when I'm talking about carbs, I mean, it should go without saying, but I'm talking about healthy carbs. So things, whole grains, fruits, vegetables, like legumes, like beans, and, milks, yogurts, like healthy carbs. Try to stay away from like the sugars and really refined carbs, but your body will need a lot of carbs through the process. So, as far as other kind of general diet advice, I think, like I said, I'm not very dogmatic about diet. And, I have had, over time, I've like realized I have to like adjust certain things. So this year I've definitely gotten more in kind of disciplined and intentional about like my race training and trying to like lower my times, and I've had to kind of adjust how I approach diets. So I'd say normally like when I'm not race training, my diet is kind of like paleo-ish. Like I don't know, like people who are really, really dogmatic about their paleo diet would probably say I eat too many carbs, but my diet is like mostly paleo, but then like with the race training, it's like I've had to like adjust things up. So this is why I say I'm not really like, doctrinaire about like my diet. It's like sometimes you might want to adjust things up. But in general, I think a piece of advice to keep in mind to follow is that like when it comes to like the healthiest diet, like the healthiest diet for you is kind of like it's going to be the healthiest one that you can really stick with longer term and be really disciplined about. So, trying to adopt a diet where like maybe like you don't like the food, like it just isn't appealing, it's going to be really hard for you to stick with that over like, if you're training for a marathon, it's 18 weeks, like it's going to be hard to stick with that. Or, just the obvious kind of practical things, like if your, spouse or partner or your children are just like not at all on board with your diet plan, like that might be really a problem. So, another thing to think about is, I've mentioned in other videos, running can be kind of hard on like your stomach. Like a lot of runners experience kind of indigestion, and other kind of nausea, like other stomach problems. So try to focus on foods that you digest easily. Like I can't really make any specific recommendations on this just because everybody's different, but like try to focus on stuff that is like easier on your stomach. Another thing, I guess, related to what I was talking about with like sustainability of a diet, like for me personally, like I cannot do any diet that requires me to like count stuff, like counting calories, or like in keto you're supposed to like count macros to like achieve a particular balance of like your your proteins, your fats, and your carbs. I can't count like that. It's just so tedious for me, like mostly because like I really believe in cooking my own food. I love cooking actually, but like it's kind of like practically it's like, am I gonna like weigh every like chicken breast? Like am I gonna weigh every tomato? Like that's not going to happen. Like the only way I could see keto being like workable for me is if I'm buying lots of like packaged foods with like a label that tells me like how many of each of these things are in every serving. But like to me it's like if I'm eating a whole lot of packaged food, like I'm kind of missing the point of trying to eat healthier, right? Because packaged foods have lots of like preservatives and chemicals and stuff. So my focus is really just on eating good foods and kind of keeping stuff that I know isn't good for me out of my diet. So for me, counting is just not sustainable, and I'm not going to do it. So just something to think about. I don't know. Maybe other people have like a much easier time with that than I do. Um, yeah, I guess, yeah, another thing I would think about is like try to get everything you need from your food. I honestly, to the best of my knowledge, I don't really believe in supplements. Most of them are kind of no good. I mean, I guess you can really do your research here, but getting your nutrients from your food is like, it's almost always going to be better for you. So I don't really have any strong supplement recommendations, but I'm kind of, based on everything I've read and my own experiences, I'm kind of like down on them. So take that for, for what it's worth. But last bit of advice, I guess I should probably talk about like the whole idea of cheat days. So this is where you have a really healthy diet, let's say like 6 days a week, and then like your seventh day is like your cheat day. You'll just eat whatever you want that day. For me, this is not a good idea. A long time ago, I did kind of experiment with this, and like I'm not disciplined enough to be able to just like kind of separate things out like that. Like I guess what I found when I did a cheat day was like, okay, Saturday will be my cheat day, and it was easy for me to talk myself into like, okay, maybe like Friday night will be like pre-cheat day, and I'll just like really enjoy myself at dinner on Friday night. And after a few months, it's like my diet is just terrible. So for me, it's kind of like I have to kind of get into this like identity of how I see myself, and like how I see myself is someone who is just like really trying to live a healthy lifestyle and just eats healthy every day, and that's how I am. So I don't really recommend the cheat day thing. It's I mean, the other consideration is like a lot of people do cheat days on weekends if they do them, and how is that going to mesh with your plan to do a ton of running on weekends as part of a marathon training plan? So like, are you going to be able to like eat lots of terrible food and drink a bunch of wine like you're just like gorging yourself like a Roman emperor or something, and then like Saturday morning you wake up and you feel terrible? I mean, are you really gonna like put on those shoes and like go do a long run? Like, it would be hard for me. So that's where I come down on the cheat day thing. Yeah, and finally, yeah, like I said, I focus on eating real food. I'm a big believer in cooking your own food, again, partly because I really like it, but I think there is something to be said for kind of knowing what's going into your body. I know cooking can be intimidating for a lot of people. A lot of people don't enjoy it. I guess me personally, I've been doing it for a long time and I've grown to really enjoy it. I guess the only thing I would say, if you're this is not something you really want to do, is like, I would say give it a try, because it might not be as hard as you think. So if you do research on like some basic recipes, kind of classic recipes, like usually you can find like the simpler version. Like I would not start with some like master class from like Thomas Keller or Gordon Ramsay where they show you like the 5-star Michelin star restaurant version of like roasting a chicken or something. Like, there's probably like a way easier way to go about making this that will still taste good if it's just like you eating it at home. So yeah, like because I mean yeah, I when I was much younger, like when I first kind of moved out on my own, got my first place. I remember my parents got me this like cookbook. I think it was called like Help My Apartment Has a Kitchen. So really basic cookbook, and it was just like but like stuff I didn't know, but like the really simple recipes like okay, how do you make mashed potatoes, or just really simple stuff. And that was good enough to get me started, and like over time I kind of got, it's like, well, now I'm kind of interested in this, maybe I'll learn more. um, Two things I will mention that can make cooking like a lot easier is like a lot of the cooking I do now is like I really like kind of one pot or one pan meals. Like I like like making soups or stews, but like one pan things like they're like Spanish dishes that I really like paella or arroz con pollo. Um, but yeah, like I like focusing on things where yeah you just kind of combine everything into one like cooking vessel and it just prepares. So two things I'd mention if you're that sounds appealing to you. One would be like a slow cooker, like a crock pot. Um, that can be like a very good option for people who like if you have to commute to work, you have like long work hours. That can be a really good option where like before you leave you just kind of throw a bunch of stuff into this thing and set it on low, and it just cooks away the whole time you're gone, and then you come home and you've got fresh cooked hot food ready for you. It's great. Another option is the Instant Pot. I use one all the time. It's basically like a fancier, more modern version of a pressure cooker with like a bunch of more options, but it's the same idea. Like you can kind of combine a bunch of stuff into it and let it pressure cook, and it's fairly quick. So yeah, but in general, yeah, I would really encourage you to be on top of your diet and to really consider preparing more of your food as just a way to be healthier and to kind of help your body if you're going to train for something like a marathon. That's about all I've got. So thank you for watching. Have a great day. I really appreciate it if you could subscribe, leave me a comment. But otherwise, have a good one, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.